Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are stepping into a world where reality, dreams, and our ultimate nightmares violently, and I mean violently, collide. We're breaking down the climactic final book of a truly epic saga, Dreamweaver Book 7. But listen, we aren't just looking at your standard fantasy battles today. No, we are diving into an incredibly intimate, highly dramatic memoir told directly from the perspective of our protagonist, Zan Nightbane. Think about it. 19 years of his life have built up to this single pivotal point where he has to face down an incomprehensible, literally world-ending evil. But here's the massive question we're going to answer. How do you fight a monster when physical weapons just don't work anymore? Well, grab your notebooks because the answers are absolutely fascinating, profoundly human, and honestly, a real game changer. Let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is the agenda of the complex lore and narrative structure we will decode together today. We'll start with the roots of identity, move into the promise arc, check out Unsealing the Mirror Gate, and then cover Xanfar's awakening, humanity's ultimate nightmare, and finally, virtues against corruption.
So everything we are discussing today is framed by this incredibly poignant retrospective from Zahn himself. As he sits in his native homeland, he's really reflecting on his entire journey. And you can see the growth, right? He isn't just that hot-headed, reactive fighter we met earlier in the story. He has completely evolved into a spiritual warrior. He recognizes that to stop this terrifying entity known as Xanfar, he can't just throw punches. He has to pass down a legacy of lessons. He's no longer just trying to survive the day. He's literally fighting to protect the very identity of humanity. It's an incredibly powerful shift in perspective.
Section 1. The Roots of Identity. Deconstructing Dream City and Dagagara.
To really understand how Zan prepares for this ultimate battle, we have to recognize one absolutely crucial fact. To defeat a nightmare that's attacking your very soul, you must first completely understand where you come from. Before his spiritual awakening, Zan grew up in Dream City. It's structured like a nine-sided star, and it's basically a giant puzzle of societal division. You've got the affluent upper sides, the religious north, the educational central hub, all the way down to the impoverished lower slums where Zan himself was actually raised. Now, you might be thinking this is just classic fantasy world building, right? But it's so much deeper than that. It is a physical and socioeconomic manifestation of divided human identity. Zan spent his whole life in a fractured society, which perfectly mirrors the fractured state of humanity that our villain, Xanfar, wants to exploit.
So how does Zan fix this internal fracture? He reclaims his true heritage. He actually travels to the land of the Dagara in Ghana to speak with his father, Sanziri, who is known as the Nightmare King. His father explains their history, telling him that during times of slavery and brutal raids, their people were scattered all over. But instead of scarring their faces for identification, which was common, they used this beautiful miracle of houses. They were guided by animal totems like Zan's own lion clan. When they met in temporary lands, simply asking, "Where is your house?" pointed them right back to their spiritual homeland. This totally grounds Zan. It gives him the resilient foundation and the solid identity he desperately needs for the final battle. He learns that no matter how scattered or broken you feel, you always have a place to return to.
And during this deeply emotional conversation, King Sanzeri delivers a frankly shocking lesson, especially coming from a guy literally called the Nightmare King. He tells Zan that humanity keeps trying to fight the devil, using the devil's own tools. It's like setting fires to stop a bushfire just burns down the whole world, you know? Zan suddenly realizes that this upcoming apocalyptic battle cannot be won with physical weaponry or stamina or endless cycles of war. It must be won with spiritual truths. He learns that forgiveness, as hard as it is literally the only weapon capable of breaking an endless cycle of hatred.
Section 2. The Promise Arc. Love in the Shadow of the End. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the complete transformation of what a weapon actually means in this lore. With Zan's identity firmly rooted, the narrative shifts right before the climax to explore the intense, life-or-death emotional stakes between Zan and his love, Ayumi. While Zan is busy finding his roots, Ayumi is gifted this seemingly lifeless blade called the Komeno Sindismo, which roughly translates to severed link. But get this, it's not meant for hacking and slashing at all. These mysterious beings, Daragarak and Arlfenisel, tell Ayumi that if Zan is ever totally consumed by evil, she must fill this very blade with the depth of her true feelings. It's explicitly designed to teach a corrupted soul how to be human again, completely from scratch. We are seeing a massive thematic shift here. The ultimate weapons in this story aren't made of forged steel. They are made of abstract spiritual truth and profound human connection.
As these cosmic stakes skyrocket, the author does something brilliant. They inject this metatextual layer of global folklore by introducing Anansi, the West African weaver of all stories.
Now, you might know Anansi from real-world myths as the god of knowledge and trickery. In this story, Anansi observes the battle and remarks that Xanfar's fatal flaw is assuming that people who walk alone are actually alone. This completely expands the scope of the story's mythology. It shows us that Xan and indeed all of humanity have these legendary foundational forces silently backing them up in this incredible spiritual war.
And let me tell you, this final conflict escalates at absolute breakneck speed. It's wild. From finding his roots on day one in the A Place to Return To arc, to making a solemn vow of love on a mountain in the Promise arc, straight into the sudden, terrifying unsealing in Xanfar's awakening, all culminating in humanity's ultimate nightmare. Xan's world unravels so rapidly, leaving him almost zero time to prepare physically. It's just boom, 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 one crisis after another.
Section 3. Unsealing the Mirror Gate and Xanfar's Awakening. The tone of the explainer shifts entirely right here. The thematic clash we've been talking about between human identity and spiritual corruption is about to become very literal and very terrifying. While Xan and Ayumi are out on a date trying to have a normal moment, they see the Omega symbol in the sky. It's this gigantic bloody red omen wrapped completely around the moon, which will eventually brand itself right onto Xanfar's forehead as the seal of the end. But what does it mean? Metaphorically, Xanfar isn't just about your standard blow-up-the-city destruction. As Xan points out, Xanfar actually desires to pervert natural and supernatural truth. He wants to pervert the identity of God himself. This symbol is a massive warning siren signaling Xanfar's desire for the ultimate end of moral reality.
So, how exactly does the devil get out of his cage? Well, through human greed, of course. It always is, right? Chancellor Tyrannus completely betrays the Dream King. He takes these elemental stones, which were originally meant to seal evil away, and basically uses them in reverse at the Eternal Mirror Gate. But the Chancellor makes a fatal, wildly arrogant flaw. Presuming that light would somehow hinder Xanfar, he deliberately omits the final stone. So when Xanfar actually steps out of the Mirror Gate as a dark, twisted replica of Xan himself, he is an incomplete manifestation. But please, don't let that fool you for a second. Because of that missing light, he is dangerously unpredictable and overwhelmingly powerful. In fact, right upon waking up, Xanfar immediately devours the Chancellor who freed him, proving once and for all that pure evil has absolutely zero loyalty.
Section 4. Humanity's Ultimate Nightmare, The Clash of Living Sigils.
We are dropped directly into the climax now, where the physical and spiritual realms violently collide. To effectively fight Xanfar, you really have to understand what he wants. And Xanfar makes it incredibly clear that he doesn't just want to blow up the planet. He explains that the ultimate nightmare, which he calls Zanbangfar, is actually the dream every human secretly wishes to dream. A dream without God. A reality completely stripped of moral constraints where humanity is totally untethered from their conscience. He wants to provoke God into destroying his own creation just by proving that humanity is hopelessly, fundamentally corrupt. It's a truly terrifying philosophy.
And this brilliantly illustrates the core moral clash of our explainer today. On one side, we have Xan's beautiful, hopeful vision. He's relying heavily on human bonds, on love, and he's actively using forgiveness as the ultimate weapon to heal the world. But on the exact opposite side, we have Xanfar's horrifying desire, a godless dream relying entirely on fear and literally absorbing human souls, like his own chancellors, for absolute, unquestioned power. It is quite literally the beautiful dream versus the deplorable dream.
So what is the game plan? How does Xan actually combat this? Well, he uses the 7 souls of virtue. These act as his foundational pillars and a highly practical guide for overcoming both internal and external conflict. Look at how perfectly they counter Xanfar's specific layers of corruption. Courage directly fights cowardice, while freedom beats back enslavement. Hope stabilizes chaos, and forgiveness actually heals decay. Conscience combats sloth, goodness counters Ziri, and ultimately, truth stands completely firm against Xanfar, the king of lies. Remember, these aren't just easy magical spells he can cast, they represent the literal emotional growth and hard-earned wisdom that Xan and his friends had to achieve to even stand a chance in this fight. But hey, just knowing the virtues doesn't make the fight a walk in the park. Not at all. Xanfar's physical dominance is absolute. Remember, he manifests from the Mirror Gate as Xan's literal dark mirror. He summons an attack called Armageddon, gathering up all the universal darkness hiding in the hearts of men. And when Xan stubbornly tries to fight him the old way with traditional rage and physical blades, Xanfar unleashes the raging ultraviolet barrage. It completely shatters Xan physically. It just wrecks him. It proves once and for all what King Sanzeri warned him about. You absolutely cannot outpunch the devil.
Physical stamina and endless war are entirely useless against this level of spiritual corruption.
And Xanfar's cruelty goes way beyond just physical beatings. He aggressively attacks Zan's emotional core. He inflicts such overwhelming terror on Ayumi that when Zan returns to the real world, heavily wounded and looking for comfort, Ayumi looks right at him and actually hallucinates Xanfar's face. She screams in just heartbreaking trauma, "Leave me alone, Xanfar. I don't want to die." This is devastating. It blurs human identity completely. Xanfar has successfully attacked Zan's most important emotional bond, trying to totally isolate him from the love that keeps him human.
Section 5. Virtues against spiritual corruption.
So, the crucial point is, what does Zan do next when he's hit rock bottom? During the trials of the human Dreamweaver arc, he is completely stripped of his physical strength, he sees the love of his life absolutely terrified of him, and he watches horrific natural disasters ravage the real world. Zan is given a stark ultimatum: surrender his soul to Xanfar or sit back and watch the world burn. Xanfar heavily mocks him, trying his hardest to make Zan feel totally abandoned. But Zan remembers. He remembers Ayumi's promise. He remembers his identity as Just Zan, which brilliantly kicks off the final Just Zan Nightbane arc. He shifts completely, 100%, from physical reliance to pure spiritual resilience. He absolutely refuses to join the darkness. Armed only with the spiritual truth of his humanity, his profound love, and his newly discovered Dagara roots, Zan charges right into the darkness one last time to claim his destiny.
Zan dives headfirst into an impossible battle, flat out refusing to fight hate with more hate. He resolves the story by choosing spiritual truth over physical war, which leaves us to ponder this deeply provocative question based on the text. Can the healing power of forgiveness truly serve as the ultimate weapon against an eternal cycle of hatred? Think about that for a second. It's a massive question that echoes far, far beyond the fictional borders of Dream City. What do you think? Thank you so much for joining us on this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I will see you next time.